Please look forward to more announcements in the future. That's it for today. Thank you for watching.
Oh. What about the Breath of the Wild sequel? Well, I guess it shouldn't be too big a surprise that there was no coverage, teasers, or even a trailer for the Breath of the Wild sequel. Nintendo have Pokemon, Smash, Animal Crossing, Luigi's Mansion, and so many other awesome games coming. No big deal. Right, guys? Well, to stay popular on the internet nowadays, I gotta join the trends. So... how dare you not show off the new Zelda, you inconsiderate Breath of the Wild 2, the Breath of the Wild sequel, Breath of the Wild Ganon's rehydration, whatever you want to call it, was sadly not shown off at the most recent Nintendo Direct, and I noticed that a lot of people were actually disappointed with this. But to me, going into this Direct, I couldn't see them showing any Zelda off whatsoever other than Link's Awakening, and that's exactly what happened. I can sort of understand why some fans would be disappointed that there was no new Zelda coverage, but to me, it made perfect sense. For one, the game was only shown off through a teaser trailer 3 months ago. I know it feels like forever as a fan, but when you're a massive company like Nintendo and have loads of games coming out all the time, 3 months isn't that big a wait time for them. Now, where am I going with this? Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about why we haven't heard anything else on the game since it was revealed back in June, and when I believe we will see the next piece of coverage for the game. So, why have we had no news on the Breath of the Wild sequel? To get the obvious things out of the way, as I previously mentioned, the game was only shown off in June, 3 months ago from the time of making this video, so that's not really an unreasonable time to have not shown anything off considering the vast lineup of games Nintendo has on the way. So when is a reasonable time to show off some new news for your game? Well, in my personal opinion, I'd say the Game of the Year awards.
The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, those ones. The award show that has become a very seriously taken thing in recent years, and who can forget that Breath of the Wild itself won the Game of the Year for 2017. These awards always have new game trailers, showcases, and all that good stuff, so it's a perfect opportunity to show off another trailer for the game, and that would be 6 months after the initial reveal. Along with this, it's unlikely Nintendo are going to win a Game of the Year for this year, so they might as well use their time to share a big upcoming game. They will probably pick up some awards, but it's unlikely they will win the Game of the Year award this year. 6 months is a lot more reasonable for a gap between showing off the game for the first time and revealing the next trailer, and I believe this would line up well with the most likely release time for the game itself. But before we cover that, there is also the possibility that Nintendo could pull one of their classic tricks and give us a direct or showcase out of nowhere between now and November. When will the game actually release, and how does this tie into why we've had no news? To begin answering that, I should state that I believe the game will be released around early 2021, and allow me to explain why. The game began proper production, development, whatever you prefer to call it, back in very late 2017 or early 2018, and we are now in the third quarter of 2019. The game has been in the works for a fair amount of time now, and if you were to set a 2021 release date for the game that began work in early 2018, that's a 3-year gap, which is a fairly common wait time between Zelda games. Over the years, we have seen that the majority of Zelda titles tend to have a 2 to 3 year gap between them, with a handheld or remake title in between. Breath of the Wild is the only real exception here, and rightly so. That game had to be ported from the Wii U to the Nintendo Switch, so that's fair enough. But this upcoming sequel will be on the Switch, and will also be using the same engine as Breath of the Wild, so there is a lot of stages the developers don't need to worry too much about that they normally would. Now, how does that tie into when we will next see some news? Well, think back to when I said it would be likely to happen at the Game of the Year awards. December 2019 presumably. That would be just over a year before my predicted release date, around a year and 8 months from the initial reveal. That 1 year and 8 months roughly would be a great amount of time to promote the game. It allows Nintendo a good chunk of time to promote it without having a promotion for the game going on for too long. They'd have early 2020 to show something off, they'd have E3 2020 to show more off, and then 1 or 2 more directs later in 2020, along with the Game of the Year awards for, you guessed it, 2020. Then release the game in early 2021. To me, that sounds more than reasonable, and if my predictions were to be the case, then that could explain exactly why we've had no news on the game yet since its reveal. Overall, I think it's just a bit of pure excitement from some fans that has caused this little bit of disappointment with not seeing more info on the game. Breath of the Wild was arguably the most hyped up Zelda game in history, along with one of the most well received, so it's understandable that the moment a sequel is announced, that excitement from the first reignites and explodes. But we do also need to remember that Nintendo don't just make Zelda games, and that sequel was only recently teased. To answer the original question of why we've had no news on the game, well, that's really it. It's still new and recent. They still have plenty of time to show their new trailers and gameplay sessions for the game. We just need to be patient as fans. Thank you for checking out this video. I know it was a bit on the smaller side, but it's something I really wanted to talk about following that recent Nintendo Direct. Let me know what you guys think about this too. Why do you think we haven't seen any news yet, along with when do you think we will see the first piece of news on the Breath of the Wild sequel and when it will release? A massive thank you goes to my amazing Patreon supporters, as your kind and very, very generous support helps me to run the channel and consistently release videos just like this one, and I can't thank you guys enough for doing what you do. So special thanks to Hexovian, Leonarco1, Keitala, Karika, Safria Sky, Daniel Kilman, Neru's Love 13, Barky Doggo, and Arlie Quinn. Your support means the world to me and helps me to keep making these videos as often as possible. Thank you. Again, thanks for watching, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.